Thanks for tuning in to Becoming Something, where we promise to keep the conversation honest and real for young adults in their 20s and 30s. Every moment we live is training for a future moment, and that's why we do this podcast, because we want you to be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you. Our hope with this podcast is that it would help you become all that God desires you to be. So with that in mind, let's jump right in to this week's episode of Becoming Something.
What's up, podcast world? It's your boy JP in the podcast studio with Nathaniel.
What's up, JP?
My favorite.
Hey, there are times when I'm like, I would never wear what JP wears, and today I'm like, man, he actually looks cool.
Wow.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Was that like an insult?
I
to
did.
Sometimes
disguise as
it's
a
just like too
compliment?
trendy, but now I'm like, man.
I did
feel like
read
that's
those
honestly
comments
so
on your
true.
fit the other day when it was that day. People were like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
man.
The day he dressed
Nate's
like
dressed
you.
like JP
Nate's
day.
drip, man. Nate's drippy today. I was like, oh, that's hilarious.
I've never
How are
worn that in
you?
my
Kathy's here
Thank
too,
you, I'm
guys.
here too.
Kathy's
Hello,
here.
hello,
She's
hello.
here. That female voice in the room is Kathy Davidson.
Y'all doing good?
Doing good. My sister-in-law gave me this hat, shout out Melon, for Christmas, and it's like sat in the box till this morning, and I was like looking at it, and I like didn't notice it has a Bible verse on it, so I like had to do the research. It's a skater, Ryan Sheckler.
Cool.
He's a Christian?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
who knew? I mean, I can't see somebody's heart.
That's true, but he has a Bible verse
He
on
does
his hat.
claim Christ.
Wow.
We're still wondering if you're a Christian.
Oh
Honestly.
my gosh, guys.
I kid you not, almost every time I teach, I was speaking at D now this week, and there's these college volunteers from Auburn.
In Birmingham. Shout out.
Birmingham. And they were like, I got to admit, it's so weird seeing you like teach the Bible
Oh.
after listening to the podcast. I'm like, I promise I'm a believer.
You're like, I'm playing a character,
Yeah.
guys.
You're like,
Yeah.
I can't
Nate
even pay
loves God.
attention
He's
to
very
you.
smart.
Yeah.
But he's a troll
He's
on
not
this
playing a
podcast.
character though. I don't know if that's
It's
true.
kind of a character, but he plays it all the time.
He asks provocative questions, but he's pretty. He is smarter. I will say he's smarter than he comes across.
So on Sunday, you were super sick. On like Friday night, you posted on social media that you ate from an ice cream truck, one of those vans. I'm pretty convinced that's what made you sick.
No, but Weston didn't know. Do y'all know that ice cream trucks are a thing? Weston didn't know
Yes,
that.
growing up, we
he
would
was
get
like,
them.
he was like, oh, I thought that was just like on cartoons. That wasn't the
that
night
poor
before.
deprived child.
That wasn't the night before. It was I think it was the night before. The night before.
Okay.
We do
Yeah.
need to highlight that you preached a sermon
Yeah.
while sick with the stomach bug.
Yeah.
And that's another
There's a-
level. I'll never get there.
There's also two people who spoke at Passion who are here today, which is pretty cool.
Really?
At the
Yeah.
conference. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you
Wow.
realize that.
I didn't, because I don't
Yeah.
think it's you. So
Yeah.
who could it
So
be?
it's
Do
the-
we
it's-
have a guest today?
It's the one with all the background noise. He's
Yeah,
back
what's
there
he
cracking
doing?
open a can of Coke or something. Hey, I want to introduce you guys to one of my favorite Bible teachers alive, and that is a
Wow.
high compliment, and it is absolute truth. And I've told him that many times. Welcome to the podcast, Ben Stuart.
Woo woo.
How are you doing?
Sorry, I was trying to listen quietly.
I don't know that
That's
you
okay.
were.
There wasn't much to listen to.
It was like, hey Ben, we're gonna start the podcast for a
He's like,
second.
I'm gonna get
And
on
he's
it.
like, cool guys, I'm just gonna do my taxes or
I'm
whatever,
gonna do some
whatever you were
cleaning,
doing
some
back.
light dusting.
Guys, I feel like, I don't know if this is just based on my life stage or not, but I feel like the golden age of ministry was when you were at the porch and you were at Breakaway. It
It's a
was
hot
like,
take.
it
So
was
we've
like,
just gone
this
downhill
is
since
like,
then?
no,
That's a
the
hot take.
thing is, it's probably the same. It's just like, I was a
'Cause that was
college
when you
student,
were
young
growing
adult
up,
in that
yeah.
time. I'm like, these two are crushing it. And so it's just crazy that you guys are
So,
both
hey,
here.
some would say it's only gotten better.
And they're
Nate.
still doing
Yeah.
ministry.
I know, it's like they're both
Way to
still
go,
doing
guys.
awesome stuff.
Oh
but-
man,
They're-
Ben is. So people ask me all the time who I listen to, and at the top of the list is Ben, which is, I feel like guys have much cooler answers because they'll talk about some old dead person or Spurgeon, or I'm listening to reading Jonathan Edwards sermons. But yeah, Ben, you've always been a guy that I listened. I think I texted you not too long ago, it was maybe a couple months now, where I was like, man, I just want to remind you of this illustration because it was absolute fire. Just whatever you do, don't forget this. This is definitely a run it back one. But man, thanks for being on the pod.
Man, it's an honor to be here. And I can say the same, man. It's just fun to watch. Well, like you said, Nate, it's just, I tell people in ministry that the longer you're in, the better it gets. And watching friends endure and succeed and grow, it's just fun to watch how the Lord's been using you, JP, and this podcast, all three of you. So it's just awesome, man. And I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to see you guys. Wish I was there in person.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Well, it will happen one day. The conversation we're going to have is around the book Single Dating, Engaged, Married, which is one of the more complicated titles. I know it does go in order.
Could you do something about that for
I know
us?
it goes in order, but it gives me a problem often. And I talk about it often because I recommend this book to people. Single, Dating, Engaged, Married is the book, and it's had a re-release with a bonus chapter around breaking up well,
Which is so needed.
which is so needed. So if you didn't read it the first time, you've got a second chance with bonus material, and if you did read it the first time,
Just
you're
get
going to want to
outdated.
pick it up again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. You're going to want to pick it up again because it has a bonus chapter on breaking up well. Ben, what's been the thing that has been the hardest for you in marriage? And so I have the privilege of knowing you and Donna some, and she's just amazing and so creative, and I feel like you guys are really different with some overlap, you know, and so like are different in ways with overlap is what I would say. But what's been like, the hardest part in marriage?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say
Donna's
now,
not going to listen to this, by the way. So it's just the four of us.
No.
Well, she was just in here. One, providing me some tech help. Two, we just said, hey, let's pray together before we jump on.
There you go.
And I was just telling her, like, hey, here's some of the things I'm anxious about today, some decisions I got to make that, frankly, I'm not sure how I'm going to make, and et cetera. And then she's like, all right, well, you know, and she's like telling me what she was reading today, and then we're praying together. And it's like, man, that's how we do this. Like,
Goals.
we just spend a lot of time talking together. You know, we talk a lot. So that's been really great. Challenge right now, this is going to sound so stereotypical or whatever, but you know, man, like, we got 3 kids. We just entered the oldest just turned 13.
Oof.
And so that whole like drift towards just being roommates is always real, but it's like escalates the older you get, where suddenly you're just 2 people that are problem solving, house cleaning, bill paying, and you just go, how do we not drift apart relationally? And so we just have to make war on screen time, man. Just go like, let's not sit in front of a TV with that 40 minutes we have together before we both pass out at the end of the day. Let's turn it off and talk to each other. So that's the fight we always got to do. So we were just talking about that. I'm like, man, we don't go on date nights anymore. We go date, sit on the back porch. You know? But that's the fight for us. Is that always not get too busy and not drift towards isolation.
When you say you talk a lot in marriage, like marriage is a lot about talking, but it's a lot about sex, right? Because I mean, there's not a lot of time left for talking because you have so much sex in marriage, right? It's just like nonstop.
That is not what I thought you were going to say.
Like it's like 90% sex, 10% talking, right? I feel like that's what every single person out there believes, and so I thought maybe you could set the record straight. He's probably like, yeah, that's about right.
One. You know, what's funny, man, is you know, especially in college ministry, I tell people that all the time, like, hey, pull back on any kind of physicality in dating, because most of the time married, you're just going to be hanging out. And people that expedite the physical early on, you just completely mess up the evaluation process of, do I like hanging out with this person? Because once the sexual tension goes away and you've had sex, now it's like, so, you know, what else do you like to do? And if you don't find that person interesting and can't talk to them, you're in trouble. You know, so, so that was the thing that we had to figure out, you know, in dating, of going, well, I'm not going to touch you because I got to figure out if I like hanging out with you.
It's honestly
and
so
it just,
good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, yes. and it really does mess things up, because it's like, if you're intimate with somebody, you will trick yourself into thinking that you like them more than you really do, and that serves as a safeguarded marriage. And if you resort to the safeguard in dating, then it's like you're really set up for failure in a lot of ways.
Yeah, man.
So this book came out of a sermon series at Breakaway, right?
Yeah.
How has dating changed since that sermon series came out?
When did it come out?
I mean, probably.
Yeah, so this is interesting. I think of it in three installments, I guess. When I first came on at Breakaway, I was in my 20s, and people all wanted to talk about dating. I did a series on dating, and then I led Breakaway for almost 12 years. And so this book was my last series at Breakaway. Actually, if you go back and listen to it, I say goodbye and tell them I'm leaving in the last talk.
No.
Yeah,
Wow.
for real. But I did it because over the course of that decade, I mean, when I first got to Breakaway, kids were like, "Hey man, you got to see this thing called Facebook. This is wild."
Yeah.
And so Facebook, iPhone, all that sounds like it's always been a part of our life, but
Right.
it just started coming on so fast. And so I had a front row seat at the intersection of 20-somethings watching the dating life get increasingly more complicated. How do we talk to each other? How do you ask someone out? Do you even use those words anymore? I just watched these young people I love increasingly have difficulty figuring out how to navigate relationships. So I didn't want to write a dating book. That wasn't like, this should be fun. I felt an obligation as someone that God had planted on this crossroads. Let me help these people I love figure out how to navigate what's becoming an increasingly complex landscape, And I would say here it is now, I think 7 years later, I moved to a town that we were just talking about this. 66% of our church is under the age of 30.
What?
So, because DC is young, man. DC is very young. Our church is very young.
How do you guys run? Oh, that's crazy.
That's what that means. That means you're rolling in the dough. You got more money than you can count.
Right.
Just trying to figure out how big you want your building to be.
And DC's
buy it
cheap
right across
too.
the street from
Totally.
from the White House.
What do
I bet.
do with all this cash? Yeah. I had a friend say that the other day. He's like, "Man, your church is alive, and I don't know how you pay for anything." It's not. There are not a lot of margins. But anyway, yeah, man. So that's it. But it's just gotten increasingly complicated. Some of the dating scripts have changed.
Yes.
In terms of what language do you use, etc. As imperfect as they were in the past, there were still some dating scripts people would follow. It's kind of this is sort of how this plays out. You think back in the day, there was courtship. You would show up at a woman's house, knock on the door, come calling, sit in the parlor with her parents. That wasn't an ideal, but it was a game they all knew how to play.
Yeah.
Or I had a buddy grow up out in West Texas, and he said every Friday night there was a dance in town.
Yeah, same.
And so you would always ask a girl to the dance. And so guys just got used to reps of asking someone out. They got built up a toleration to being rejected.
Yeah.
They just figured out how to survive that.
Yeah.
And now it's interesting up here, man. We have wonderful young women at our church. I mean, Donna was the young worship leader at her church back in Texas back in the day. She would get hit on so much, this attractive girl singing on stage, that her band had to double as bouncers.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now we have wonderful, beautiful, talented single women singing on stage that have never been asked out once.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
And you go, man, that's hard.
Why?
It's
Why do
hard
you
for
think
a lot
that
of
what's
these young
Why do you think that is?
There's a couple factors. There's not like one single one, but if you look at time spent, the numbers keep going up, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, people spending online. Where was that time spent previously? Hanging out with friends.
People. Mm-hmm.
And so you hang out with people, you learn how to talk to people, and friendship groups, you find someone you're interested in, you ask them out. And so if you've shrunk that time with just communicating with humans in general, you've shrunk that time where you could ask someone out on a date. So some of it's that. Some of it's kind of the change of priorities. There's been a shift philosophically of it used to be, you get married and then you all figure out how to pay the bills. You scrounge for quarters and date nights at Taco Bell. Now it's like, no, I got to get my money right and my degree right before I think about dating. You know, it's the capstone rather than the cornerstone.
Cornerstone, yeah. Say what you mean by that, because I think that's a profound idea for most people. It's the capstone rather than the cornerstone.
Yeah, there's been that push, and it's not all been bad. It's particularly been a push towards women of you need to get your career. You need to get your education, your career, your job. And it's wonderful that women are able to get education and a career in ways that were maybe not possible in decades past. But it went from like opportunity to obligation. Like you have got to get your degree and get your job and make a certain amount of money before you even let a guy mess that up. Like marriage is a threat to your fulfillment. Whereas in the past, and again, it wasn't perfect. There's no bygone ideal era. In the past, couples would get married, you know, when they were young and figured out how to navigate life together. Yeah. Now they're waiting until I get my career right. And there's some trade-offs to that, you know?
But the one, I didn't intend to talk about this, but just to play catch up, I don't know if I told you, but I've been working on a matchmaking site, which is different than like a dating app. It's like it'll be a matchmaking app, and so the difference is basically it tries to send you on one date rather than playing the numbers game of swipe left, swipe right. And there's a team of people and algorithms and all doing the work. But did I tell you that, or did you know that?
You mentioned it to me, and
okay.
I'm very curious to see how it goes. Man. Like I'm excited to see the possibilities.
I mean, it really was just like born out of frustration because it's exactly what you said. I just saw this this list of amazing women that guys weren't asking out, and you know they were asking the same girls out, and which made them say, oh, they're always saying no. Girls are always saying no, and it's like, yeah, you know, just trying to identify the problem, spending years trying to figure out, all right, what is the problem, and then this team of developers say, hey, would you come and consult with us and kind of talk through that? And so it's qualifiedDate.com. The idea is that you'd be sent on a qualified date. But the book that Ben wrote and now has revisited is Single, Dating, Engaged, Married. What made you say, hey, I want to re-release this work?
Yeah, there was 3 reasons. At first I was like, I don't think I need to re-release it because I haven't changed my theology about this or philosophy about it. But what ultimately got me to say yes to it was, number one, I wanted to update a lot of the statistics for people to see, hey, what has changed even over the last 7 years and what really hasn't, you know, in terms of, it's fascinating to look at data on Gen Z and say the number of people who want to get married is still extraordinarily high. The age of your first marriage keeps backing up, but the desire has not changed. So you can't say it's like people just don't want to get married. No, they're saying they want to. It's just that navigating of that period is getting increasingly difficult. The second reason was I wanted to add that chapter on how to break up, man. Actually, I wouldn't say I wanted to, because people kept asking me, like, hey, you got single, dating, engaged, married. What about single, dating? Oh, this isn't the right guy. I don't want to be here. So I'm like, all right, we got to figure that path out. Yeah. And then the third was I didn't do the audiobook. When I first wrote it, they were like, you should get someone else to do it. And I'm like, okay. It was like my first rodeo with books. I'm like, all right, man. And so they got some guy to do it, and he did a great job, Michael, but I just always felt a little weird hearing him tell the stories of my marriage with Donna and whatever. Yeah. And so they were like, hey, if we redo this, you can do the audio. And I'm like, let's go. So I got to read it myself, which is good.
That's cool.
I want to hear more about the new chapter on it's not the right person. What do you do? How do you know when it's not the right person? How do you is there a way to like break up in a godly manner? Like, what does that look like? Because I feel like I only see it done wrong.
Yeah, my question is like, how honest do you be?
Yeah. Ooh, good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I tell people, you know, you think about the evaluation process of who you're dating. And, you know, there's a lot of ways you can talk about that. Real simple ways. I tell people to look at cause. Are your lives going the same direction? Are you chasing the same cause? And then you look at their character. Is this someone I can trust? Because that's so much of marriage is, do I trust you with my finances? Do I trust you with my children? Do I trust you with my frailties and so are we running the same direction, pursuing the things of Jesus? Do you have a character I can trust? And then number 3 is chemistry. Do we like hanging out? Do we get along? You know, those sort of, and I think you evaluate on those things. and you want to get trusted counsel around you. And so as you're dating someone, you're not trying to like win the job at an interview. You're trying to be authentically yourself in front of this other person. And as you dialogue, you see, do we, as best we can tell, are we meant to run together in life? Mm-hmm. And at some point you may get to the place with someone where you go, you know what, the chemistry is not there. Just like after an hour, I'm like, so everything else okay? You know, or some other issue. You may see, hey, at the end of the day, for him, 8 out of 10 sentences is about money. Mm-hmm. He says he's a Christian, but he loves money. Mm-hmm. And I love Jesus. And those are 2 different directions. Mm-hmm. You know, so you're evaluating by those 3 kind of pieces. And then I tell people, man, clarity is kindness. I just don't think you mess around with it. You know, like I think the minute you get wise counsel around and say, hey, I don't see this. I know the destination I want to be at. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he and I are going to arrive there, or she and I are. Then you need to be as clear as you can. And it doesn't need to be a long conversation, but I think clarity is kindness. It's interesting. There's statistics out where you can see, I can't remember who did the interview. I put it in the book, but they were asking people like, who's been ghosted? Oof. Someone just disappeared on you. And it was a huge percentage of people. And then how did you feel about it? And all the feeling words were just like so heartbreaking, totally. You know? And then they're like, okay, so how many of you have done that to somebody else? And most of them had.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you go, okay,
wow.
The thing that's been so painful and so difficult and so hurtful for you, you do to others. This is, so don't do that.
Wow.
But I did a little focus group with a group once, and a guy was telling us how he asked a girl out at church. And she said, you know, I think it'd be fun, but I just don't see you and I going anywhere. And everyone in the room went, ooh, like that probably really hurt. And he goes, no, it was a gift.
Yeah.
He said, because she didn't waste my time. Yeah. I wasn't trying to guess.
Yeah.
And now they're still friends, you know? So.
But it's so much easier to blame it on God and just say, hey, God told me that I need to be single right now.
Yeah. That's what Nate did.
Yeah. It
Every
is.
Did you ever get
That's
the
how
God
he got on
card
this
on
podcast,
you?
Ben.
Oh
He was like, hey, God told me I'm supposed to be your co-host. I was like, I don't want to argue with God.
Wow.
But it is interesting when you're in college ministry, young adult ministry, how I'll talk to a girl and it's like, yeah, he said he wants a season of singleness. God's calling him to a season of singleness. And I'll talk to him and he's like, oh yeah, I did not like spending time with her. And it's like, man, I just, and now she's like waiting around.
Hey, girls are just as
totally.
They are the offenders here as well.
Totally.
So.
It goes both ways. But it's like one person's just waiting
Stop
for the season of
that.
singleness to be
But
over, and this guy's like,
that's a lie.
Stop doing that. Yeah, don't be a liar. Don't follow Jesus and lie.
Man.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's that courage of your convictions. You just got to look someone in the eye and say, hey, I don't think we're a fit.
Yeah.
It's not about, we're trying to evaluate. You're evaluating the other person, but you're also evaluating the fit.
Yeah, and those are vague terms like chemistry and fit, and I think it's because sometimes, and this is especially a gift. I think, I don't probably guys as much as girls, but sometimes you don't know. You're not real sure. Sometimes it's hard to put words in, but that's a good enough. Like, hey, I don't know that we go well together, or I haven't enjoyed spending time with you as much as I had hoped, or whatever that is. But the truth is, my dad would always say the truth is good enough. Hey Ben, I want to go back to something you said. Just chemistry is something on the pod we've gone around and around about, like how valuable that is. And here's where I struggle with it, and I want to get your honest thoughts on this. Is people get married and they're like, hey, we no longer have chemistry. And if that was a deal breaker when we dated, it should be a deal breaker when we're married. And so I married the wrong person and now need to go find the right person. And so I tend not to value that so much. Now, the example you gave there, and you were talking about direction too, is you were like, hey, he's really into money. I'm really into Jesus. We're not going the same way. And if that equates to chemistry, then I'm like, absolutely. Like, and I wonder how much, if we have Jesus in common, like we're just, if our theology is aligned, we love the church we attend, we love Jesus, we read the Bible in similar ways, God is revealing, similar things to us, and yet we both don't like rock climbing, or, he skateboards or he snowboards and I ski, or I don't know what that is, but it's just, when we get around, I don't know, whatever the thing is, that's lacking. I wonder how important that is in the grand scheme of things. And I personally have wrestled with that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of that.
Yeah, I would put it at a distant third. What I mean is the first thing you're evaluating is the cause, is what I'd say. What is your life pursuing? And so for the Christian, you go, I live to know him and make him known for the glory of God. So if someone's not a Christian, you don't date them because your lives are going different directions. That eliminates quite a few hot, funny people, right? Because you go, our lives are going different directions.
Yeah.
And then you look at character and you go, someone may say they're a Christian, but what do I see in their life? You know? And if I don't see that, not perfection, but if I don't see progress, then I shouldn't link my life to you forever. And then I put third, chemistry, like I said, a distant, and in the culture, that tends to be number one. Are you hot, funny, cute? Then I hope you're a Christian or at least believe in the deity. That's a recipe for disaster.
For sure.
You know, which is why a lot of dating apps, I think, I'm not against dating apps at all, but I think one of the challenges of them is they tend to focus on beauty and charm, which are definitely going to fade.
NotQualifiedDate.com, shout out.
Oh my gosh. I thought we're supposed to be promoting his book, and you're just throwing it out.
I'm just saying.
I'm good.
Felt necessary.
But I do think what you're onto, JP, which is right, is there is that sense of, no, I got to find the one who kind of fills up all my vacancies and links up with me in all these areas I value. And you go, that's too much freight to put on another human being. No person will meet every part of your personality, every hope, desire, hobby. You're not all going to link that way. And so in the chemistry piece, you just got to decide if those first two are solid, then this is a good fit. Now you go like, can we talk to each other? So for Donna and I, when we're dating, I like to run. She hated to run. And so I had to think, and I'm like, is that a deal breaker for me? I'm like, no, I'll run by myself. Like, I don't really care, you know? And so there are all kinds of things like that you'll hear people say, well, he likes racquetball and I'm not really into it. And you're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, let him play racquetball with his buddies. Like, so I don't think it should hold the value some people put it at. But I remember for me in college, I mean, once you do those first two, you eliminate almost everybody. So every dating relationship becomes difficult.
Yeah,
you go
because,
like, they're all wonderful.
Or the pool becomes smaller. I mean, you're trying to figure out, when you prioritize the things of faith, it's like, oh, okay, it's not trying to find the needle in the haystack. I'm trying to find the one or two people in the church, honestly.
Because in a way that I didn't realize it, like what you mentioned with what you and Donna are doing right now, I feel like especially once you throw kids in there, you really are like
friends
on this mission together.
Totally.
And whether you like it or not, it does turn into more of like, you're almost like running a business in some ways where you're doing this thing, I'm doing this thing. It's not romantic date night.
I don't know who said it first, Ben, but I've just really embraced the phrase, find somebody you want to suffer with. And I know that sounds so bleak, but there's aspects of life that are hard, and there's all these like plot twists that you don't see in your 20s. You're not thinking about miscarriages, and you're not thinking about, illness and just surgeries,
parents getting sick.
Bearing grief, all those things. And so when you go at it like, hey, this is someone that I can suffer with, it really does change things. And so I want to go back to that chapter, the new chapter in the book, Single, Dating, Engaged, Married. There's a new chapter on how to break up well. I think that Christians, now I'm talking about I love Jesus, he loves Jesus, we're dating. I've seen a lot of people like Friday Q&A just stall on the, hey, but what if I'm not feeling it, on the chemistry piece. So is there any practical wisdom that you would have for them on how much time to give yourself, questions to ask, how to think through this? Like, hey, we're dating. I love Jesus. He loves Jesus. We're going the same direction. But I just, when we're spending time together, I don't know if I'm physically attracted to him. I don't know if I'm physically attracted to her. I don't know if, it feels like we don't have things to talk about. I don't know how much effort to put forth right here. Any thoughts on that?
That's good.
Yeah, I'd say the first thing to do is like a hard reboot on your own internal gauges. Because I do think there's the secular gauges are how physically hot they are, how funny they are, or how romantic they make me feel.
So good.
You talked about this at conference, JP, of just, if you are feeding your brain with the chaos of dating on some of the dating TV shows and music, where all dating has to be chaotic romance, you've programmed your algorithm off. So you need a hard reboot of what do you think the win is.
Yeah.
And so getting out of some of the uglier versions of dating that are filling your mind stops us from setting unrealistic expectations for the human beings.
So good.
And so I think if you have someone that you know, the best you can tell is chasing Jesus and has a character being shaped by him, meaning you're seeing them love and serve other people, you're seeing them pursue holiness in some variety of avenues, then give it a shot. And I would say go on a few dates and see. Some people say no way too fast, and you go, you just don't know who you've got there. You know, it might be Christoph, man. Not, you know what I mean? Like, give it a second. Go on a second sleigh ride. See what's going to happen. So I just wouldn't like hurry up to get out of this thing, because you might get infatuated with the one who's a full-on monster and miss the one who's really got character.
Totally.
So just give it a beat,
were you like Ben Stewart, cool, famous breakaway guy when Donna said yes? Like, did she know what she was getting?
No, I was a broke youth pastor, man. And
but you had hair.
Wow.
I remember
You were
that.
a youth. I thought you were like a college student and then like took over.
No. I mean, Greg mentored me right out the gate, but then I went and started a youth ministry for 5 years.
I didn't know that part.
And I was the single guy in a suburban context. Everyone was trying to set me up on dates. And I'm like, no. Because I knew enough. All my dating life in college was a complete mess. And so I knew, like, we need to get Ben figured out a little bit here. Like, if every relationship ends as a dumpster fire, maybe it's not them, maybe it's me. Let's
Maybe
get
you're
some
the
counseling.
problem.
Let's heal some wounds.
Say it for the people in the back. That's worth listening to. Write it down.
Totally.
Yeah, and so I did, man. Just realize, hey, you know, divorce is common, but it's not normal. It happens a lot, but it does a mess on your emotional life. So I had to get some help from healthy community. And so when I met Donna, I was not interested in dating. I was actually proud of the fact that I didn't need somebody. It was just me and Jesus. But I just enjoyed being around her. And I had always prayed, God, I don't want someone to slow me down. I want to be chasing you, and I want someone that's running after you with me. And she was leading worship, and I was speaking at an event. And I was like, a lot of people could lead worship. That doesn't mean you really love Jesus. But then she was like discipling young women on the side.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's
different.
No crowd is cheering when you're doing that.
Right.
Yeah, right.
That's from a love for the Lord.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't real romantic with her. Like, let me try to stir up her feelings. Because I'm like, to do what?
Yeah.
But I just knew, like, this girl is chasing the Lord, and so am I. And we could talk for hours. We disagreed on all kinds of things. We weren't interested in some of the same things. But we were able to just keep going together. And then I had to evaluate. I could be single. I had written a treatise on the benefits of singleness. And but I thought, you know what? I would rather live life with her than without her.
Yeah.
So let's do that. And her character was a big part of it. I mean, JP mentioned that suffering together. I had no idea a few years later my back would break.
Yeah, man, that was wild.
I'd be on the floor.
Oh, wow.
And watching her.
For how long, Ben? I mean, because a lot of people don't know that story, but that's when I knew.
Was it actually
I followed
broken?
kind of closely.
Wow.
In that
I didn't know that.
It was why you had somebody had stolen your eye. It's the craziest story ever. I know we're wrapping up, but the fast track, somebody had taken your iPhone, you chased after them like the hero that you are, and somehow just totally jacked your back up in the process. And you were like flat on your back for a long time.
No way.
Yeah, man. On my face, doctors said you may not walk again. Lost a bunch of weight. It's funny, JP, one of like the most watched videos at Breakaway from me was not even a sermon. It was like a, hey, we're coming back for the fall video, but it was after all that, and I had dropped 50 pounds, and I didn't really have 50 pounds to lose.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah.
So I just think people were watching it because I looked skeletal. I was like, oh, Rick,
They're
and they're
worried
like,
about
oh my
you.
God, like, have you seen this video?
Is he
Like,
okay?
something's wrong.
Yeah.
And
Did you preach in like a chair?
I did not, dude. I was like FDR. Like, worship would be going on.
Yeah.
My physical therapist was behind the curtain working on my back.
You're kidding me.
I would walk to the curtain, set my cane down,
Shut up.
Yeah.
and then walk up the steps and
Dude,
breathe,
this is FDR. That's crazy.
and then come back and lay down on the floor, man.
Ben, I just want to ask you forgiveness for when Kathy tells you to shut up.
I'm sorry.
It's not that we have a dishonor culture. I'm not. We'll talk as soon as we're done here. We're going to have a conversation about that. And so I just
means
wanted
no
to jump in.
way.
I just
That's
wanted
what
to
it
jump in,
means.
Pastor, and say our apologies.
Gosh. You guys are a bunch
Man.
of hero pastors. You're preaching
hard
through the
being
stomach
Catholic.
bug. You're preaching walking
Yes.
with a cane.
Stomach
I
bug.
you
preach. I don't even get paid.
paralysis.
Wow. Wow, you're suffering.
Man, I have so many questions. Like, how did that affect your view of God? Where you're like, hey, I'm giving my whole life to you. I'm in ministry, and why don't you just heal my back?
Oh man, I had that fight with God and I got so mad at him on the floor because I was on my face for a month on the floor, and every time the AC would kick on, it would start spasms in my back.
Dude.
Crazy.
And then the drugs they had me on gave me hiccups.
No.
And that's when I lost it. I
Yeah.
think God likes to push us to the end of our
Yes.
faith.
Dude.
Yes.
Like you're like, I trust
Yes.
you, God, I trust you. And then I was like, okay. You
Yeah.
know, I just got so furious.
Hiccups.
And what happened, man, was
Oh, so real.
I felt like the Lord was like, don't put a lid on it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, why aren't you fixing this? And then it was like I could see, not physically, but I just kept thinking about all the human suffering in the world.
Yeah.
And I was like, why aren't you doing anything about all of
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
And then I thought, Ben's pain is not even in the top 10 of human suffering on the planet.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I felt like I said, why won't you do something about it? And I just had this sense from the Lord where he said, I have.
Yeah.
And I am.
Wow. Wow.
And I just realized, oh, so much of my prayers were like, God, serve Ben's interests,
Yeah.
Wow.
because I have certain goals and outcomes that I want. And I just had to get back to our theology holds suffering.
Yeah.
Yes.
The world is broken. It's a mess. He's done something about it, and he will.
Yeah.
And I just let go of a lot of the stuff that I thought was important that didn't matter. And I just wanted to serve him from wherever that was going to work, however. And to be walking with a wife that could love me so faithfully through that, never said curse God and die.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So like you were saying, JP, that character piece is important.
Yeah.
And now I think I definitely walk. I'm like Jacob, man. You walk with a limp and go, okay, God, you're the one who gives me strength to keep moving.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful.
Yeah, definitely prioritize that, guys. I mean, chemistry there's value there for sure. It can be created with, tequila shots and a trip to Mexico. I mean, The Bachelor creates it. Love Island creates it all the time.
Yeah.
And so it can be a liar. It can be deceptive too. And so, man, we're on with who I think is truly and sincerely one of the greatest Bible teachers alive. He's someone I listen to often and learn from. I get to call him
Who's better
friend.
between Louis and Ben?
I get to call him friend. And here's what I would say. They both outrank you
Wow.
by 2 letter grades. Okay?
Have you?
Wow.
Okay.
2 letter grades.
Do you teach
I'm
anywhere?
trying to wrap up
Oh,
here.
sorry.
Okay,
I know.
go
Nate's
ahead.
on
I want
another
my
level.
hero right
Nate's
now.
Nate's
God.
activated.
He's got
I'm like,
stuff to do
he's
here.
I would give
like-
$1 million to hang out with Ben.
You don't. What?
Let's
you
go.
don't have $1 million.
You don't know what I get paid for speaking gigs.
Okay.
I
What did
do.
you want to ask, buddy?
It's not helpful.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can hang out anytime, man.
Okay.
Texas,
He doesn't
DC,
mean
you
that.
name
I'm
it.
going to interpret for you.
I
don't.
know, I
Don't. I'm not going to give him your cell phone, Ben. Hey, thank you for joining us. The book is Single, Dating, Engaged, Married. It's back out, available everywhere books are sold. Grab one for you, and it's good. It's for anywhere, like any life stage somebody's in. You can grab this book and benefit from. And so whether you're single, dating, engaged, married, you're going to benefit from the book. And if you're going through a breakup or need to,
Yep.
now you can pick up the book. So it is the most comprehensive relationship book that's ever been written in the history of history. And get it and get the copy. Ben, we're so grateful for you. Thank you
That's
for your
awesome. Thank
faithfulness.
you.
Thanks for jumping
Yeah.
on the podcast with us.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And just know that a lot of our people tune into this all the time. I mean, a lot of people follow y'all, but I get the benefit of it up here. We got a town filled with singles, and you're influencing them.
Yeah.
And so just know we love you and are cheering you on, man, for real.
We love DC. We do know that because we're having to tell you you ask us to come speak so often there at Passion City, and we have to say no so often, and so it's clear and obvious how many people there.
Remember that
listening.
part about our money?
Yeah.
I have so many guest speakers like, hey man, I want to come. I'm like, bro, I want you to come.
on your own
Ben,
dime,
Nate
man.
will do it for free. I
I
promise.
will
Super
pay. I will
much.
pay to preach a pass.
Hey,
It's
man.
like speaking, or it's like singing at the Super Bowl. Like they don't
Let
pay
me-
you to do that.
Let me get a
Yeah,
few
they-
more rich people coming here, and I'll fly out all my friends to come preach.
We
People
love you,
don't
man.
even know
Grateful,
what they're missing.
grateful for you.
Keep
Hey,
it up.
hey guys,
Same.
we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Becoming Something, where we promise to keep the conversation honest and real for young adults in their 20s and 30s. Every moment we live is training for a future moment, and that's why we do this podcast, because we want you to be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you. Our hope with this podcast is that it would help you become all that God desires you to be. To find out more, visit becomingsomething.com.